Yeah, we were hoping for the good podcaster discount code.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking, give them off $2.21.
There you go. I like that.
Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere comes from listeners like you who support us through Patreon and Substack. Bonus material, thank you gifts, and more await at patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock and at ihearofsherlock.substack.com. And by Dan Andriakos, Sebastian McCabe, Jeff Cody Mystery Series. The latest, Ding Dong the Witch is Dead, starts with an arrow through the heart on Valentine's Day. Now available in paperback or as ebooks from MX Books and Amazon. And now you can enjoy some IHOSE swag, mugs, notepads, and oval stickers. Available in our store. Find it at ihearofsherlock.com/merchandise.
I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, episode 330. And it is always 1895.
I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became stronger.
In a world where it's always 1895, it's I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, a podcast for devotees of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first consulting detective.
I've heard of you before. You're Holmes the meddler, Holmes the busybody, Holmes the Scotland Yard Jack in office.
The game's afoot as we interview authors, editors, creators, and other prominent Sherlockians on various aspects of the great detective in popular culture.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
So join your hosts, Scott Monty and Bert Walder, as they talk about what's new in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
You couldn't have come at a better time!
I'm Bill Curtis. This is I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. Now here are your hosts, Scott Monty and Bert Walder.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bill Curtis. Always a pleasure to have you doing our fine introduction. Yes, this is I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast for Sherlock Holmes devotees where it's always 1895. I'm Scott Monty.
I'm Bert Walder.
And Bert, you're not always 1895.
No, and I'm not even Bill Curtis. By the way, did you see that Bill Curtis is leaving Wait, Don't Tell Me now?
I did. I was hoping we could offer him a full-time gig here and that I could swap in and be the announcer for Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Oh, that's wonderful. If you go do that, then Bill Curtis could take my job here and I can sleep late and not worry about anything.
Well, it is 2 in the afternoon.
Well, okay, time to get up.
You can still not worry about anything. Just leave it all to me.
Worry? Yeah.
Leave the worrying to me, my friend.
Okay.
We have a lovely show planned for today. We have John Shimberg and Linda Crohn from the Torists International in the Chicago area. They are the host and hostess, the instigators behind a conference coming up in October in honor of Vincent Starrett called And It Is Always 1895. We're going to be talking with them about exactly how they came up with that, what attendees should expect, and how you can get involved with this very important conference. So stay tuned for that. We also have our latest episode of Examining the Pictures. That's the segment that Christian Mongard does for us as a film critic. He's going to be looking at the new Amazon Prime series, Young Sherlock. So you want to hear that. And, of course, we have the Canonical Couplet, the Sherlock Holmes quiz program, where we give you 2 lines of poetry and you determine which Sherlock Holmes story we're talking about. The winner will be eligible for a prize. This time it's going to be something from the IHOSE vaults here at IHOSE Central. So stay tuned for that as well. And, well, maybe we'll throw in a few other newsy items or related things that we've come across in the recent weeks. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that on Patreon or Substack. Just go to patreon.com/IHearOfSherlock and IHearOfSherlock.substack.com. Both of those ways give you different options, whether it's monthly or annually, to support the show. We do offer a discount for our annual subscribers, and we have thank you gifts for our friends over at Patreon. So pick whichever platform works for you. You get to listen to the show ad-free. You get bonus content and other material that we post exclusive to those platforms. So check that out. And also, if you'd like an IHOSE mug, but you don't want to be bothered with a subscription, that's fine too. We have IHOSE mugs and notepads available for sale on our merch store. I have a link to that in the show notes as well. Now check out all of our links at IHearOfSherlock.com. Well, we trudge into the second half of May, begrudgingly, getting dragged in here because there is so much going on in the Sherlockian world in May. This is the part called the Learned Societies, where we share with you some of the goings-on with the local Sherlock Holmes organizations. Is there one near you? There very well may be. So, two things you can do. You can check the Sherlockian calendar at sherlockiancalendar.com. You can also check the Beacon Society's geographical listings of societies. They have a nice Google map there, so you can scroll around and find the society that is nearest to you. We'll have links to both of those in the show notes. And of course, there's a third thing. You can listen to us drone on now for what's going on in the month of May. So, Bert, I think the last time we were here, we left off at the first half of May. So why don't you pick it up for us?
On the 16th of May, you all need to go to Irvington. Well, not all of you, but some of you need to go to Irvington, New York, and visit the Three Garadebs of Westchester County. They're having a meeting in person. Will Walsh. He will tell you more at and you can also look at threegaradebs.com.
For those of you in the Midwest, the illustrious clients of Indianapolis have one of their 6 regular meetings coming up on May 16th in Indianapolis. Louise Haskett is your contact, and you can check out their Facebook group or page at facebook.com/illustriousclients.
And also on May 16th, in Providence, Rhode Island, it's the Cornish Horrors. They're having a lovely luncheon meeting.
Oh, who's the contact there?
I am.
Oh!
I am. You can email me for more information. We'll be in downtown Providence at Fleming's Restaurant. We're going to have a great meeting. We have a terrific guest speaker. All we need is you.
Perfect. If you don't feel like moving from your chair, well, the Norwegian Explorers give you that option on the 16th of May. They have their virtual study group. Check them out at norwegianexplorers.org.
And on the 16th, also, boy, what a busy day, Sherlock Monthly. Our friend Edward G. Pettit from the Rosenbach Library in Philadelphia is having his usual virtual session, and contact Ed for more info.
And it is a busy weekend also on that same weekend on the 17th, which I think is Sunday, in Keene, New Hampshire. The Monadnock Sherlockians have a lunch meeting, and Anna Behrens is your contact there.
Also on the 17th, Madison, Wisconsin, the notorious Canary Trainers are meeting. Joanna Draper Carlson can tell you more. And you can take a look at her website, which is on the comicsworthreading.com page under Canary Trainers.
This next one on the 17th is germane to anybody who's interested in the interview coming up in today's episode. Brenda Rossini of the Bespeckled Band will be taking people on a tour of Graceland Cemetery on Sunday, May 17th. That's in the Chicago area. And of course, that is where Vincent Starrett, well, I was going to say now resides, but that's where Vincent Starrett is buried.
Yes. And the 18th of May, Columbia, Maryland, our friend Matt Hall, Watson's Tin Box of Ellicott City, will be having a dinner meeting. And find out more at watsonstinbox.org.
Okay, fasten your seatbelts, folks. All of the following events are happening on May 23rd. May 23rd. So, first, if you are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Afghanistan Perceivers are having a meeting. You can find out more about that at tulsa-sherlock.org.
And during that meeting, you might be able to pick up your phone and look at the virtual meeting that's also happening with the Criterion Bar. And Ruth Goldman is your contact there.
In New York City, the adventuresses of Sherlock Holmes are hosting their spring luncheon. Don't want to miss that. One of the big events of the year for ASH. You can find them at ash-nyc.com.
And then close to you, Detroit, Michigan, the Ribston Pippins are having a dinner meeting on the 23rd of May. Contact Regina Stinson for more, and the website is ribston-pippins.com.
In Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, Denny Dobry is running a White Rose Irregulars meeting. You want to contact him there. His information is on the site.
And you can pick up your sunscreen and go to Winter Garden, Florida for the 23rd of May. The Orange County Pips of Orlando are having a lovely breakfast meeting. Our friend Eric Deckers is responsible for that, and he will be happy to tell you more.
All of these and more are available at Sherlockiancalendar.com. Make sure you add your group's information here if it's not already listed, and get in touch with Ron Fish. Linda Crohn is a retired lawyer. She now has more time to pursue her love of everything Sherlockian, including writing articles about the canon. When she was 15, she fell in love with Sherlock Holmes, watching Basil Rathbone. It took many years for her to finally read A Study in Scarlet, The Sign of Four, and the 56 Stories, and many more years to read The Hound of the Baskervilles and Valley of Fear. With John Shimberg, she's currently the co-chief steward of the Chicago Science Society Tourists International S.S. Jonathan Shimberg is a Sherlockian by both geographic upbringing and marriage. He grew up in Pound Ridge, New York, just down the road from a famous Sherlockian. More realistically, he married a Sherlockian and has been dragged into that world, now as the co-chief steward of Tourists International S.S. He practiced law, family law, for 50 years, retiring on Thanksgiving Day, 2022. In his free time, he and his co-chief and wife, Linda Crohn, planned a conference honoring Vincent Starrett this October. John Shimberg and Linda Crohn, welcome to I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, this is your first time with us. I hope you don't have any kinds of first-time jitters.
Yes, we do.
Well, we first made an acquaintance about a year ago at the Canonical Conclave in Indianapolis, and we've become each other's biggest fans since then, I think. And
I think so.
Part of that is leading up to what we're going to be talking about today. But for the sake of our listeners, why don't we go all the way back to your origin story and hear how you first met Sherlock Holmes. Linda, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so I started off when I was 15 years old watching Basil Rathbone on television, and I was absolutely hooked. At this point, I can probably recite the movies. I've watched them so many times, and it took me a long time before I actually started reading the stories. My sister actually bought me the complete Sherlock Holmes, and I started reading and just really got into it and have always been in love with the whole stories, the whole just everything about Sherlock Holmes, the movies. So that's my story.
Why the delay in between first seeing the films and then taking a while to get to the printed matter?
Probably because I was in college and then I went to law school, and that took up all my time. So I was a good student and had priorities.
Well, there's your mistake.
Yeah, well, I know if I had known then what I know now.
That's great. And how about you, John?
I believe I read Sherlock Holmes when I was in my teens, but with a lot of other books, like Doc Savage, Tom Swift, a lot of different things. But I really became more Sherlockian when I met this woman, and she got me involved. And it turned out that two of our close friends were Sherlockians. One was Dennis France, who just like we were retired divorce lawyers, and Dennis was a divorce lawyer, and he invited us, I believe, to go to stud. So we went to stud meetings for a couple of years. And then Elliot Black, who was also a Sherlockian, was a person who we networked with. He was a businessman, and we knew him. So they were both very, very active Sherlockians. And then we also met Fred Levin. So it became a social event more than an academic event.
That's marvelous.
Who lived near Barrington.
Oh, I was born in Pound Ridge, New York. About a mile down the road lived a guy named William Baringold. I grew up with his son. We went to elementary school together. So part of I say my love for Sherlock Holmes is geographic and marital.
Well, that's perfect. That is perfect. So, did the two of you happen to meet through Sherlock Holmes, or was it only after you met that you discovered your Sherlockian connection?
We met because of practicing law. I knew his partner from a different venue, and we were introduced that way. And it wasn't until we were well into our marriage that we got involved in Sherlock Holmes.
Well, that's encouraging that you weren't two litigants across the table from each other, ready to take each other up the throat.
What was the it's wonderful that you had this community, and particularly, John, that you grew up with Baring Gould's son. That's really incredible. Was he as much of a Sherlockian as his father? You probably don't remember or know.
I don't remember. I was 8, 9 years old. I remember yesterday. Come on, 76. I really don't remember. I remember Billy. I remember Baring Gould House. So but there are other. It turns out there are other Sherlockian connections. I found out last week that I was reading. We had to read Black Peter for the meeting of the Tankerville Club, and I was reading the Wikipedia listing. It turns out a man named Max Ehrlich wrote a radio script for a Black Peter show. Well, I knew Max Ehrlich, and I knew his wife and his daughter. So that was that connection that I never knew existed until last week. Small world.
Yeah. And when did both of you get to Chicago, or were you in Chicago? Because John, you just said you grew up in New York.
I went to college with Beloit, Wisconsin, and my first marriage was to a woman who was from Chicago, and I went to law school in Chicago. And I've never left, so I've been in the Midwest since 1967.
Oh. So it couldn't have been too much of a trip to get the Starrett connection then. When did that happen? When did both of you get sort of closer to Vincent Starrett?
I started reading Jimmy Lavender and Murder on the B-Deck and other things like that. That I have a large, not great but large pastiche collection. And so I started reading Starrett and enjoyed it.
Huh.
And I had Phil Cunningham constantly prodding me to read his autobiography, Born in a Bookshop?
Yes.
Okay. And Bob Sharpman then got us involved in going to the Cliff Dwellers for meals, and Vincent Starrett was a member there. So that's how I started paying attention to what Vincent Starrett did.
That is something. I think somewhere along the way I have an announcement from the Cliff Dwellers that included either a Starrett or a J. Finley Christ appearance. I'll have to look through my collection. And
there is a brochure of a Starrett lecture to the Cliff Dwellers, the 40s, where I think it was $3.50 for the lunch. It's posted, in fact, in the Cliff Dwellers lobby.
Oh, fantastic!
And the Starrett conference started because one day I woke up and I rolled over and I said to my wife, I was reading Vincent Starrett's Wikipedia listing. His birthday's October 23rd, 139 years ago. It was 138 years ago then. I said, he should be honored. Why don't we put on a Vincent Starrett conference? And Linda looked at me and said, are you crazy?
That's a rhetorical question, though.
Yeah, go back to sleep.
Wow. So how does something like that go from dream state to reality? What did you start doing once you decided he needs to be honored and he needs a conference?
Well, the first thing we did was send out notice to a lot of Chicagoans that were Sherlockians, with the idea that they would be willing to help us. And the next thing we did was contact Ray Betzner. And that's how it all started. We needed Ray's help.
That's a smart move right there. Well, we know, for those listeners who haven't been following along, we know that Ray runs the website, A Study in Starrett, and has probably been the most active and the foremost biographer of sorts of Starrett. Not simply from a chronological perspective, but just looking at his impact, at his materials, at his life and times. I mean, it's really been comprehensive. And we'll get to what Ray is offering up during the conference weekend in just a moment. But what kind of advice did you get from Ray? And I have to imagine he was more than enthusiastic about the whole concept.
Ray, I contacted Ray by email because we had never met. And I said, Ray, we're thinking of putting on a Starrett conference on his 140th birthday. And we're wondering if you would assist us in that endeavor. And he jumped in, open arms, and has been the most help that we could imagine. And he's helped put together the speakers. And
we've been, aside from the speakers, which he arranged, we've run things by him, and he's always been ready to help us with his opinion on how we should do things, or what our publicity, our flyers look like, and that's kind of thing.
Well, that's great. So for those of our listeners who, might not be up to speed on Vincent Starrett, I mean, it's interesting, John, you say your way into Starrett was by reading Jimmy Lavender, and I've read that, but, tell our listeners, can you give them, just a couple of sentences about Vincent Starrett and why he's so interesting and how he's connected to Sherlock Holmes?
Well, Vincent Starrett, even though let me say one other thing. We decided we wanted the Starrett conference because we figured if we didn't, Toronto would. So we wanted to jump in because Vincent Starrett lived most of his life in Chicago. He went to, I think, Marshall High School, right, and graduated from there and became a correspondent for a Chicago newspaper, and was a war correspondent in Mexico, and went to China as a war correspondent, and wrote poetry and mysteries. And then he wrote a book called The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which is a fascinating read. In fact, I'd read it before, but we had a book club in the last few months where we read it for over a month period of time and discussed it. And then he edited 221B studies in Sherlock, and then he wrote mysteries. And he's just, he must have been an amazing man. There's one person that I know of alive, probably at least one, who in fact has a connection, and that's Robert Sharfman, who has a Hounds of the Baskervilles Sick membership certificate signed by Starrett. Now, he didn't join until after Starrett died, so obviously Starrett signed something blank, but it's still a connection.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for those two of our listeners who don't know about Starrett, first of all, you should check out Ray's website, and we'll have a link to that, obviously, in the show notes. But Starrett, was... and the reason you mentioned Toronto is he was born in Canada, I think. And famously, he was born over a bookshop, so he became a great book collector. But in his time in Chicago, he was part of a really great literary center that was in Chicago, particularly of newspaper people. People like Ben Hecht, who became a more famous playwright, went to Hollywood. Ring Lardner, who was a sports reporter and a great wit. Carl Sandburg, the poet. And so Starrett, was part of that Chicago newspaper community and was a terrific writer and book collector.
He apparently amassed many book collections over the time and at various times had to sell them to fund his lifestyle. So he would sell his collection. And then I think I read that someone gave him his Sherlock collection because Starrett sold his own, and then Starrett sold that collection again. But Starrett also wrote a column in the Chicago Tribune for over 20, 30 years called Books Alive, that it was about books, and did a lot of things, reported continually on Sherlock Holmes. He was one of the founding members of the BSI. He was one of the founding members of the Hounds of the Baskervilles Sick, and I think the Criterion Bar Association, and he just gave a lot to Sherlockiana.
Yeah. And so when you think about doing a conference to celebrate him on his birthday, the interesting thing is you've got all these dimensions. I mean, you've got Sherlock Holmes, obviously, and then you've got his own fiction. But he was also, as you say, a great book collector with multiple collections. There's so much. So how did you, what was the process that sort of led you to say, okay, well, look, if we're going to do a conference on Vincent Starrett, here's kind of what we need to cover. Here's how we might approach it. Because there's so many options there.
Right. Well, again, we left a lot of this up to Ray. He was the one that found the speakers, and each speaker has his own focus so that there won't be any overlapping. But a lot of this is just about Vincent Starrett and his connection to Chicago and his connection to Sherlock Holmes. It's really concentrating on him more than Sherlock Holmes.
One of the speakers is an expert on the bookstores that Starrett lived in, basically. One of the speakers helped take care of Vincent Starrett in his last few years of his life. There are speakers who are collectors of Starrett. One speaker edited a book on the Starrett Sherlock columns in the Chicago Tribune. So we're trying to cover his whole life, and we're also going to be doing a rededication of his gravesite. And our real goal is to put together the profits from the seminar and donations are to fund an endowment to maintain the gravesite forever.
Mm. And the nice thing, too, about Starrett, and his love of books and so on, is I think you announced a little while ago that you've added something special for something like a small group, something for the first 50 people or something like that who sign up, which is a trip to the Newberry Library. Is that right?
Yes, we were able to connect with, and actually we asked George Sheets, who's a librarian, to work with the Newberry Library in getting us to be able to have something there. So on Friday morning, the 23rd, right? Friday morning, the 23rd at 11 o'clock, we can have a group of up to 50, 55 people, and they'll divide us into two groups. One group will get a tour of the library and how to do research. The other group will see the Kittle collection and their Doylean collection. And then halfway through, we'll switch so that each group gets, both sides. And it should take about an hour and a half, 11 to 12:30.
See, that's wonderful because, for those of our listeners who don't know about the Newberry, it is a non-circulating research library. It was founded back at the sort of the end of the 19th century, if I remember. And it's very big in things like, printing and American history. But it has a collection of things pertaining 600 years of history. And it's reported somewhere, I heard, that it's got 30 miles of bookshelves. And it's really, it's got a lot of unique things, manuscripts, maps, music. And it's free and independent and privately funded and focused on research. And, it's a nice experience to get to the Newberry.
And there's still spaces open. So register, and then you're entitled to attempt to be in line with the other people to see that thing. The other thing that's interesting is Vincent Starrett's, I think, grandniece is coming to the conference. So that we're very excited. I've never met her, but she's going to be there, and we'll hopefully get her to participate to some extent in the conference.
Oh, that's marvelous.
That'll probably shock her because she hasn't been told yet.
Very cool. So the conference takes place from October 23rd through the 25th of 2026. It is being hosted just outside of Chicago, right, at the White Pines Golf Club in Bensonville, Illinois. Help us geographically. Where does that sit with respect to Chicago proper?
It is right outside of O'Hare Airport.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yes, exactly. So it's a little bit of a trek, to downtown Chicago, but the hotel and the golf course are right around the airport. And there's a shuttle from the airport to the hotel, and then we're working on it's like a 10-minute drive to the golf course. So it's very, very convenient.
Excellent. And from what I understand, it looks like you are combining efforts with the Hounds of the Baskerville Sick.
Yes. Vincent Starrett was very involved in getting the Hounds of the Baskerville Sick started, and they hold a dinner every year. And so John talked to Al Shaw and said, why don't you be part of our conference this year, because it connects. So that's how that got started.
That's great.
So if you register for the conference, you also get invited to the Hound of the Baskerville Sick dinner, and that generally is by invitation only. So this time it's open to the public if you register for the conference.
Now, is that being held at the conference venue as well, or is that in a different location?
No, the same. It's at the same golf course.
Very convenient. You guys have made this so easy.
How can we make it harder? No. No, we wanted to make it easy for Sherlockians. People can fly into O'Hare and take the shuttle to the hotel. And we've arranged a very, very inexpensive rate, or low rate, at the Courtyard by Marriott, including breakfast, of under $130 a night. And that you share a room and you can have up to 3 or 4 people for breakfast. So it gets to be very, depending how many people you want to sleep with. It can be an interesting weekend.
Yeah.
But we want it to be accessible to people because we think he was a very, very important person. I mean, he deserves the name The Last Bookman.
Sure does.
There isn't any Scion that we're aware of that doesn't end their meeting with 221B. So everybody knows him, and and we should appreciate all he's done.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And he's, one of the big names in the history of the Baker Street Irregulars. Even though he only attended one dinner, I think it was the very first dinner, he is given the same level of honorifics as Edgar Smith and Christopher Morley and Jim Montgomery. Some of those big names. Vincent Starrett is considered probably one of the biggest. So seems appropriate that he should be honored in this way. So how many people are you hoping for? Let me ask it this way. How many people do you have capacity for, and what would be a good number for you if you wanted to call it a success?
We have a capacity for 200 people. I would love if we had 150 people, including speakers. So we're talking about 140. Practically, if we get 100, I'll be very, very, very happy. But I would love to have 150 people. There's enough room in the hotel, and I think it would be a very, very fun time. We also have vendors' tables, and most importantly, a book is being released, written by somebody named Ray Betzner, called The Private Life of Vincent Starrett and Sherlock Holmes.
And it'll be available for purchase during the conference.
I'm sorry?
The book will be available. They're getting it ready so that the introduction to the book will be at the conference. So it'll be available for people to buy. And
to have signed, because Ray will be in attendance. For all of you Ray Betzner fans out there, or should I say both of you Ray Betzner fans out there? I don't know. No, Ray's a popular guy.
He is.
And that's phenomenal. And when I think about the collaboration between the two of you and Ray here, obviously Ray has the most knowledge about Starrett, probably the most connections with individuals that he can kind of tap as he has done for speakers. But there's no way that Ray could have pulled this off in Vincent Starrett's hometown without the two of you. The two of you obviously having the idea and being willing to run with it, but just being there, being on the ground and, knowing all the locales and being connected with the Sherlockians in the area. And to me, this is emblematic of the things that we as Sherlockians do when we come together.
Well, we've been very lucky because, as I said, Ray has been an enormous help, but we have a really good committee that's helping us with so many different aspects of the conference.
We have Max McGee's helped with the pins. Madeline Quinones is helping with the graphics. Janice Weiner's helping with what we call the goodie bag. Dan Andriaco's helping because he has experience in running Dayton. So we have all sorts of people who have jumped in and have been very willing to help us. This is our first, and from what I say now, our last conference.
Well, we certainly wish you a lot of success here, Linda and John, and we are hoping to be there ourselves. And I'll tell you what, we will do the conference one extra solid. For anyone who goes to anditisalways1895.org, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. That's the conference website. for anyone who goes to the website and downloads and registers from the form that's available there, if you put in the code IHOSE, that's all capital IHOSE, we will donate $1 to the fund for every registrant who does that. And we'll put that toward the conference and its profits toward, Starrett's headstone and all the rest. So that is our offer here on I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere today. So if you want to put us in the poorhouse, and if you want to go to the conference, we can't necessarily offer you a discount code, but we can offer you that registration code that'll make sure that Starrett's memory is kept green.
We thank you so much for that. That's so unexpected, and we're so appreciative of that offer.
Yeah, well, we had no idea we were going to do that either. So welcome to the party. Well, Linda and John, we can't wait to see how this all goes and to see the smiles on so many Sherlockians' faces as they gather outside of Chicago in October.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Well, the Starrett Conference, it's a terrific opportunity. You know, we've not done, the BSI haven't done anything that's brought people to the Midwest, I think, in recent memory, or maybe ever. So going to Chicago will be great. Well, has there been something?
Well, we did the conclave last year.
Oh, right, the Canonical Conclave. Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Well, but this will be fun, too, because of the Newbery. And we didn't get into this with John and Linda, but the Newbery have a great collection of Conan Doyle material. They've got, over 120 or more, 100, a good number of letters and notes and cards, family correspondence, parts of manuscripts, photographs, some first editions and all sorts of things. There was a collection given, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or more to the Newbery. So I'm sure some of that will be on display.
That was Dr. Fred Kittle.
Kittle, is that who it was?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be good.
I was intrigued to discover they have 30 miles of bookshelves. I may have to drive out there. I can't look through the 30 miles of bookshelf on foot.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. Well, you got a golf cart.
There you go. We'll take the golf cart in from North Bensenville.
Yeah, I thought the number was something like that, 25, 30 miles. Yeah.
Well, makes sense. But really, it should be a fantastic conference and long overdue when you think about it. Starrett, he had a rough go of things during his life, and certainly we remember him at every meeting closing with his poem, and it is always 1895, as that last line goes. So his memory is evoked every time we do that, and yet we don't spend much time dwelling on Starrett himself. And I know we'll be talking to Ray Betzner later in the season about his book and about the impact of Starrett, as we have before, but it should really be something that everyone partakes in.
Sherlockian, magician, mystery writer, professor, and sleuth at large. That's Sebastian McCabe. In a series of lighthearted mysteries by Dan Andriacco, Mac calls on his knowledge of the great detective to solve conundrums in his small town of Erin, Ohio. These adventures are shared and chronicled by Mac's brother-in-law, Jeff Cody, an admiring but by no means uncritical Watson. Readers say the cast of continuing characters, including Jeff's journalist-turned-novelist wife Linda, makes each new book feel like a visit home again. The McCabe and Cody mysteries are packed with Easter eggs for Sherlockians, but they also feature engaging characters, good writing, solid plotting, and a light touch. As Bonnie McBird said, "You're in the hands of a master of mystery plotting here." David Markham calls the series classic Golden Age mysteries set now. The latest in the series, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, starts with an arrow through the heart on Valentine's Day. And that's not even the main mystery. Dan Andriaco's McCabe and Cody mysteries are available in paperback or as ebooks from MX Books and Amazon.
Well, once again, we find ourselves in the world of film. Film this time on the small screen as Christian Mongard takes us onto Prime Video.
From young Sherlock Holmes to old Mr. Holmes and back again. A brand new series, Young Sherlock, inspired by the books by Andrew Lane, has recently been added to Prime Video. Why not take a look at that? My name is Christian Mongard, and this is Examining the Pictures. Right up front, I have to say that I was more than a bit apprehensive when I learned that this new series, while created by Matthew Parkhill, was developed by Peter Harness and Guy Ritchie. And Ritchie is also producing the series, and he has directed the first 2 episodes. I have a difficult relationship with Guy Ritchie. I liked his first 2 films, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and Snatch very much, and I still do. They were a breath of fresh air in the stale British gangster flick. But the films he has made since have been hit and miss, and mostly miss. I especially don't like the 2 Sherlock Holmes films with Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law as Holmes and Watson, where Ritchie placed the characters in a sort of steampunk version of Victorian England and made Holmes into a veritable action hero. Those 2 films, to me, represent everything that is wrong with Ritchie's smart aleck and laddie approach to comedy and suspense. It must be visually fancy, fast-paced, fast-edited, full of action, and contain many attempts at clever dialogue and lots of swagger. All at the expense of a coherent story and believable or even likable characters. Ritchie has somewhat redeemed himself with a couple of his latest films, The Gentleman and Wrath of Man, but then he ruins it all again by going too far with all of his cinematic masturbation. I remember reading an interview with Ritchie and Downey Jr. at the time of the premiere of the first of their Sherlock Holmes films. They had the audacity to claim that their Holmes was a very faithful adaptation of the stories by Dr. Watson. That actually made me angry. One could argue that the first one is an okay action film, but it has nothing to do with the Sherlock Holmes we know and love from the books. The second one is just plain bad. For me, a good interpretation of the Holmes stories has to do with being faithful to them and the characters in spirit. The series Sherlock by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss has 10 times more of Sherlock Holmes' DNA in the first episode than both of Guy Ritchie's films put together, even though Sherlock is set in modern times. The same is the case with Young Sherlock. It has nothing to do with Sherlock Holmes, and I suspect they only used the name because of its brand value. It is an easy way of selling a series that in reality is just telling the story of a young, quite intelligent rascal, his best friend, and his strange family relations. Call it something else and you would have a sporadically amusing adventure series. Call it Young Sherlock and you have something that many people will recognize and try on for size.
My name is Sherlock Holmes. I've always been more of a thinker than a fighter.
The 2 aren't mutually exclusive. There's an art to fighting.
There's an art to war. Larceny, thieving. Those days are surely behind me. I'm in Oxford now.
You have to promise me something.
Anything, Mother.
Stay out of trouble.
Sherlock Holmes.
James Moriarty.
Sherlock is making friends.
Guy Ritchie and the other creatives involved with the series borrow from the original Sherlock Holmes stories, or they allude to them. They even borrow from Sherlock, with Sherlock and Mycroft sarcastically referring to each other as brother dear. The series takes place in Oxford in the 1850s, where the 19-year-old Sherlock Holmes, played by hero Fiennes Tiffin, nephew of Ralph Fiennes, is being released from prison with the help of his older brother Mycroft, played by Max Irons. Sherlock has been pickpocketing for the sport of it and got caught. Mycroft, who works at the Foreign Office, takes Sherlock with him to Oxford, not to study, but to work as a servant, a scout, while Mycroft himself assists the wealthy and powerful businessman Sir Bucephalus Hodge, played by Colin Firth, who claims he built the empire. At the same time, a Chinese princess arrives at Oxford, and soon Sherlock and his new and best and only friend, James Moriarty, played by Donald Finn, find themselves in the middle of a very curious case of professors being murdered by the princess, if that is indeed what she is, and Sherlock being accused of the murders. I shall not spoil too much more of the plot, the whole thing is quite preposterous, but it has to do with the devastating invention of war. And it somehow involves Sherlock's own family, his mother Cordelia, played by Natasha McElhone, who is in an asylum, his scientist father Silas, played by Joseph Fiennes, who is traveling, and the sister of Sherlock and Mycroft, who died when they were children. It is something that Sherlock has always blamed himself for, and he's haunted by memories and guilt of the day the sister was found dead. A devastating event that has quite a remarkable bearing on the story's conclusion.
Mycroft, what the bloody hell is going on? You mind telling me why your brother is standing at the scene of the crime? Oh dear.
I'm curious as to why I'm being set up for murder, but I need proof. There are other forces at work. Sorry to bother you, sir.
What is it?
A bomb.
What do you mean a bomb?
A bomb is an incendiary device.
I know what a bloody bomb is.
Why would anybody want to do this?
You're a smart boy. Work it out.
I actually started out wanting to like the series. Some of Guy Ritchie's visual flourishes and the constant use of modern rock music gave the whole affair a certain energy. And the Oxford setting is nothing if not full of old beautiful buildings, traditions and atmosphere. But there are quite a few blunders when it comes to the characterization of the young Sherlock Holmes. In the first episode, he goes from being quite the boxer in jail to be mocked by Moriarty for his inability to defend himself, which is quite annoying and baffling. Sherlock is 19 in the series and should be well on his way to become a genius consulting detective. But even though he at times shows his brilliance, he also seems unsure of himself and sometimes even slow in realizing what is going on. Moriarty is just as often the clever one. Also, Sherlock, who does not yet smoke, is quite the drinker and very interested in the young women of Oxford. Worst of all is that there are 8 45-minute episodes in the season. That is more than double what the mystery Sherlock tries to solve can bear. As is often the case with TV series these days, a thin plot is overly drawn out and it becomes increasingly ludicrous as time goes on. A tight 3 or 4 episode season would have been so much better. The actors are mostly good, though Joseph Fiennes gives away the game a bit too much as Sherlock's mysterious father. The snobbishness and condescension of Mycroft towards Sherlock becomes irritating after a while, and at some point one becomes more interested in the story of young Scottish James Moriarty, who is on Oxford on a scholarship and is not a fan of the economical and societal hierarchy, and how he evolves from being Sherlock's charming and good-natured rapscallion of a friend to the scary Napoleon of crime we know from Watson's stories. As a dramatic device, I can perhaps understand the inclusion of Moriarty. If you know Holmes, you know what Moriarty becomes, and that gives the story tension. And Holmes needs a sidekick. But why not use a young medical student named Watson instead? You are rewriting canon history anyway. I did enjoy moments in some of the episodes of Young Sherlock, and it is certainly energetic and kinetic, but I cannot in good conscience recommend the series. Hopefully it will turn younger viewers onto the original stories of Holmes and Watson, and then it will have served some kind of a purpose. And if you are a Sherlockian and a completist, you will feel the need to see it. But if you, like me, are a bit of a purist when it comes to Sherlock Holmes and adaptations, I advise you to stay away. You will thank me later. And thank you for listening.
What an interesting analysis. Have you seen any of it?
I started watching the first episode, and Well, first of all, it was late at night, so I wasn't going to stick around for the whole thing, but I definitely got that same kind of Guy Ritchie vibe that he described. That this is, fanciful action hero Sherlock Holmes, like we got in 2009 and 2011, I think, when the sequel came out, Game of Shadows. And it's a minor thing, but that whole brother dear affectation really bugged me as well. I picked up on it right away. I was like, oh, it's going to be another one of those. So, I mean, for entertainment purposes, yeah, fine. For those who are really looking for something that's actually Sherlock Holmes, this doesn't meet the standard.
No. Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of it, but my inclination, well, I'm sure I'll look at it at some point. My inclination is now reduced a bit. Well, completely. The small amount of inclination I had is it's off the priority list. Interesting. Well, listeners, what do you think of it? I mean, we'll be happy to entertain other opinions and be delighted to have another way to think about it.
Yeah, drop a comment in the show notes on Patreon or Substack or right here on ihearofsherlock.com. Or just email us at comment@ihearofsherlock.com as well. I would say that while we are on the subject of Guy Ritchie, I highly recommend the series The Gentleman on Netflix. That is, I think, maybe an 8-part series, if I'm not mistaken. That came out a few years ago, I think 2024. And just really, really well done. Great writing, great acting, good pacing.
Really?
Yes.
What's that about? I've not seen that.
So, The Gentleman, the quick thumbnail is when aristocratic Eddie inherits the family estate, he discovers that it's home to a huge weed empire, and its proprietors aren't going anywhere.
Oh, I have seen that, I think.
And
yeah,
the concept here is that Eddie is the second son of the Duke, and the first son is, well, as you might expect, a complete wastrel, just drinking and snorting his way through life. And the Duke writes up his will such that the first son is disinherited, essentially, and all of the responsibilities and money in the estate go to the second son, who is eminently more responsible. And the whole play between the siblings is just really, the whole dynamic is really well thought out and well played out, and makes for some really good plot twists in there as well. Well, those jaunty strings means that it's time for everyone's favorite Sherlockian quiz program. Could be because it's the only Sherlockian quiz program out there. I can't judge. But Canonical Couplet means that we ask you to tell us which Sherlock Holmes story we're talking about when we give you 2 short lines of poetry. The last time we were around here, here's the clue we left you with. To shear one's locks and wear that shade of blue turned out to be a risky thing to do. Bert.
Yes.
I always think better of myself for putting myself and all of our listeners through this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, which Sherlock Holmes story are we talking about?
It's easy because that is one of the big stories. That's the story that has at the center of it the theft of the great Agra treasure and the 4 thieves who seal their pact by drinking beer from the same jug. That's why Watson called it the Stein of the Four.
I'm drowning over here.
You mean that's wrong?
Slightly.
Oh, no.
But we do have our friend Eric Deckers to the rescue. He writes, Kushangaza, I've solved it. That's Swahili, by the way. The Duolingo lessons keep on going with Eric here. This is good. He writes, This is a story about the time that Holmes rescued a singer who was being used by her agent for publicity stunts, and she ended up being kidnapped by the leader of a gang of bumbling thieves. It's the story Watson called The Adventure of the Copper Beach Blanket Bingos. Except that Holmes and Watson really never sang surf music in any of their adventures, so this is more likely to be The Adventure of the Copper Beaches. Yes, Eric, you managed to rescue yourself there. I appreciate that. Well, we got, I think, what is a record number of submissions this time around, so we're going to have to bring out the extra large prize wheel and give it a big spin. Watching it go around as it slows down on number 62. And that looks like it is DJ LaChapelle. Hey, congratulations, DJ. We will be getting you, no, a one-way ticket to the Epilogues meeting? No, a vault item. It must be an item from the IHOSE vaults, yes. And that is precisely what we have for whoever we choose as the winner from this episode's Canonical Couplet, and here is that clue. At 6 a.m. near Aldgate Station, Mason's finding alarmed the nation. If you know the answer to this episode's Canonical Couplet, put it in an email addressed to comment@ihearofsherlock.com with Canonical Couplet in the subject line. If we choose your name at random from all the correct entries, you'll win. Good luck. All righty. Well, that'll about do it.
Hooray!
Yes, I know. It's crazy. Ides of March are upon us. How did that happen?
I don't know. It's a mystery to me.
This is where you say, well, it follows the Ides of February.
The Ides of February. Why aren't there Ides of February? That's what I want to know.
Well, there are, aren't there? Weren't there Ides in every month?
Are there? We never talk about them.
Sure. It's the 15th. It's the middle of the month.
Okay.
Well, actually, Ides in February would be the 14th, but the Ides, it's the middle of the month in the Roman calendar.
Oh. Okay.
The Calends, with a K, were the first of the month. The Nones were the 5th or the 7th, depending on the month.
Is that like the Isles of Langerhan? Are they near? If you go to the Isles of Langerhan in the middle of February, will you be near the Ides of February?
Yeah,
or did they come together and give you the Ides of Langerhan? And by the way, who was Langerhan? And is the sea rising around the Isles of Langerhan?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed you're not answering any of these questions.
I'm waiting for you to take a breath.
Oh, all right. Well,
didn't Mendelssohn write something about the Isles of Langerhans?
No, you're thinking of the Isles of Two Langerhans, and that was a two-handed thing that Mozart did.
Well, clean up on Isles of Langerhans too.
Yeah. Bring the blue bucket, by the way.
Oh, goodness. Well, I think we've worn out our welcome here, wherever that happens to be. Folks, thanks for listening once again. If you'd like to get in touch with us for any reason, the email is comment@ihearofsherlock.com. And we should mention that our comment line is always open. We don't really publicize it that much anymore. But if you'd like to call us at 5-1895-221-B5, that's 518-952-2125. You can leave us an audio comment there. The lines are still open. We are still keeping that inbox, or that voicemail box, operational. So surprise us. See what we come up with. And if we find your comment worthy of note or hilarious or something, maybe we'll play it on the air. Stranger things have happened around these parts. And stranger things will continue to happen around these parts, and not just the Netflix kind.
No.
Well, Until then, I am the stranger, Scott Monty.
And I'm obsessed with my pancreas. I'm Burt Walden.
Together, we say the game's afoot.
The game's afoot.
You know, I'm afraid that in the pleasure of this conversation, I'm neglecting business of importance, which awaits me elsewhere.
Thank you for listening. Please be sure to join us again for the next episode of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast dedicated to Sherlock Holmes.
Goodbye, and good luck, and believe me to be, my dear fellow, very sincerely yours, Sherlock Holmes.
Here dwell together still two men of note, who never lived, and so can never die. How very near they seem, yet how remote that age before the world went all awry. But still the game's afoot for those with ears attuned to catch the distant view hallo! England is England yet for all our fears. Only those things the heart believes are true. A yellow fog swirls past the window pane as night descends upon this fabled street. A lonely hansom splashes through the rain. The ghostly gas lamps fail at 20 feet. Here, though the world explode, these two survive. And it is always 1895.